family, they have everything that they need materially. So I knew it was not an issue about money. I knew it was something else. So they called me, we had lunch, spoke about a lot of things, and I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking, I need to be leaving now. And then I heard the two of them say, I think it's time. So I said, what time? He says, yeah, we now need to talk. So then they said, you can follow us. So I went straight, they led me to their main bedroom. And I saw there were actually 3 chairs already put in there, which means they were preparing for that. And they closed the door, locked the door, and told the maid, keep the kids away. We're going to have a serious talk here. And we spoke about a few items. Well, they just asked me, can you just say whatever the Lord lays upon your heart in terms of marriage? So I just started talking. And then I said, okay, I've just given you a piece of my mind, but I'm sure you have questions. And the wife was sitting there and she said, brother, I want to ask you a question. How do we manage the law of supply and demand? Yeah, that was a tough one. But it was a genuine question coming from a genuine person, a genuine question from a genuine person, asking about the laws of demand. Because obviously the supply could be less than the demand. Maybe the husband wants it every day, in the evening, in the morning. And sometimes he drives from work during the day and comes back home. Let's have it. So, and the wife is saying, I am tired. I am tired. So we had to address that issue for this specific couple. And they even raised issues to do with, I think there's a time when they came from a funeral, and it was a closest relative of the wife that had passed on. But they had gone there for 3 or 4 days. And that night when they came back, the husband said, yes, I'm on. And the wife is saying, but I'm still in mourning. So we had to talk about all those issues, but this was specific issues for this specific couple. So I wouldn't go into the details, but what I'm basically saying is these issues are very important issues. But I want to build upon what he just said. In terms of when you wake up, that's when the emotions, you start working on the emotions to prepare about what's going to happen at night. And I always compare, what happens in the bedroom with the church service. And for many of the young couples that I've spoken to, and some of them I'm looking at right now, when they started their homes, I've always given this example. And this example looks at what happens in the bedroom as a church service. And we've always said, you don't go to church, you sit in there, and the pastor just comes and preaches. It doesn't happen like that, right? You go to church, you sit there, church order, you sit there in the quietness of things. Then when you sit there in the quietness of things, you are meditating, you are thinking. Then later on you hear somebody comes in and say, hallelujah, we are going to start singing now. And they don't start singing a very fast song. No, they start slow, maybe with amazing grace. Then they raise the tempo. And then when they raise the tempo, they reach a certain point where they feel that the anointing is right. And when the anointing is right, they say, let's now call our pastor to come and give us the word. And the pastor comes and he preaches the word. And he preaches the word. There is tears there. There is mucus there. There is everything. There is mourning. There is shouting. There's everything that happens. But it's a service. And he reaches where he says, you hear some pastor say, I'm now reaching my climax.
Okay.
And they reach their climax. And when you hear them say, now I feel good. The Spirit has spoken. And then they close the service. And then they bring the song leader and say, come now. sing a song. They sing a song and they go home. But these services are different. They are church services as in on Sundays. No more church service. Full service. Then there are prayer meetings. Prayer meetings. Then there are funeral services. Then there are baptism services. There are engagements. There are different types of services. It does not mean that every service has to be the same format and same everything. Then there are services where the pastor says, I just have got 5 minutes, but I have to say something. Quickly. Okay. I just want to say something quickly. Then they say something quickly. The word reaches home. They say, this, I'm going to finish it again on Sunday. This service. This sermon, I didn't finish it. I'm going to finish it on Sunday again. What is he doing? You are building up. So, this is exactly the same setup that you have when it comes to what happens in your bedroom. It's a church service. There are services that are short. There are services that are long. There are funeral services that happens there. There are services that perhaps sometimes you just come and sing and pray and no one preaches. Because many times you heard it from the advocate here, that for women sometimes it's not about the ultimate goal is not sex. That might not be the ultimate goal. And we as men, we need to learn that as well. That a cuddle can be something that the woman wants on that particular day, and it's enough for that day. And you do the cuddle. But many times the reason and the problem we have is because of our backgrounds. And many times we Africanize these things. And I was talking, I think it was in the morning or I can't remember where now, where I was saying some men will actually say, switch off the light, because they've never heard about it being done in the light. It has to be done in the dark. All the time. Some men have never seen their wives naked, and vice versa. Vice versa. They wait until the man walks out of the bedroom, then they dress up quickly. They've never seen their wives naked. And the advocate spoke about appearance and everything. Because these issues, when we address them, we really want to go to the core of these issues. I remember the other time when we speaking to another couple, they had these problems, marital issues, intimate issues in the bedroom. And when we examined the issue, we realized that it was the issue about appeal. Because the man was saying, why is it that I never get activated when I look at my wife naked? Why is that I don't feel anything anymore? No, the other time we were just discussing, but it was just a general discussion I was having with my wife, and I said, you know what? I always try to encourage the people that be careful about your underwear. Because one day you might get involved in an accident or something. And they have to take you to a hospital, and they have to strip you. So be careful. So this issue about appeal is very important. Because many people appeal, they think about the outside. That's what the people say. But you are forgetting that you have got someone in the home that sees the other layer that the other people don't see out here. And if the people who are seeing the other layer, that layer is not appealing, then you are killing yourself. Then you are killing your marriage. So it's very, very important. You don't want doctors to be shocked that, what? One day I was listening on the radio. You know, when people come and visit you at the house, you allow them, they ask, where's the bathroom? And then you usher them to the bathroom. You know bathrooms, you visited people's homes, right? And people, for those people that have got a single bathroom perhaps, and because it's a single bathroom, people wash their underwear and they hang it in there. And the visitor comes, can I go to the bathroom? Yes, go, it's there. They go in there, they look at the underwear. And it was on the radio. That program was on the radio. And someone said, hey, sometimes when you visit people and you go to the bathroom and you see the underwear, hey, you start having different views about those people. Different views. It's about appeal. It's very, very important. But we must talk about these things, because these are not taboo. Amen. These are not taboo. You know, one day I was talking to my sons. We were in the car. And I said, boys, do you know something about sex? Because I'm trying to teach them. Do you know anything about sex? And these boys will say, yeah, we know about it. When a man and a woman meet together and they sleep together, the sex. I said, what? You already know about those things. So many things we avoid this subject thinking that they are taboo, and yet our kids know about them, and we just avoid them. It was a youth meeting that I had with the youth at our church, and I asked them a very simple question. I said, how many of you know about sex? It was the youth. And then all of them raised their hands, we know about sex. Fine. Then I asked them a next question. Who heard about it from their parents? Very, very few. Out of all those people, maybe 5 or 2, between 2 and 5% had heard about sex from their parents. Which means they had heard about sex from someone else. And that's where the problem starts. Because what did they hear? But the parents are busy walking holier in the house, holding a Bible. We don't talk about, when the child wants to ask about that, we don't talk about those things. Those are devilish things. Come here, lay a hand here, I will lay my hands on you. We need to pray for you. That spirit, there's a spirit coming on you. No. I don't think any one of you would say, we want to have sex. Can we open the book of the Bible? Go to the book of Songs of Solomon. And then we read, and then say, yeah, we are ready now. Honey, let's have sex now. You don't do that. You don't do that. People who are believers, who are unbelievers, anyone else can have sex. But why is it that the marriages of those who are not Christians are better when it comes to those issues? I'm not talking about all of them, but I'm saying, why is it that they are better than we as Christians? What are we lacking? Where are we lacking? Why are we saying these things can never be spoken about? Many times you talk about these things and people just shun around, say, hey, you don't talk about this. One time we had a session, a youth session, it was a Zoom, and after there was a pastor in there, in the session. After the session, he called me and says, hey, those things that you spoke, don't you think they are supposed to be spoken direct, pastor, to their ship member? And I'm like, and when they are asking questions, what do you want me to do? The fact that they are asking the question, which means you have never addressed them. You are busy preaching the seals, what happened in the book of Revelation and everything, and yet your church member, they are suffering on that issue. We have got people, we have got women that have complained and say, my husband is not satisfying me. What do you do with those issues? Do those people just sit there in church and expect that one day the pastor will preach about it? No, they need to be advised. The men need to be advised. The problem needs to be known, and then they can be helped. But if it's not attended to, then that's when you hear that the woman left the house and went somewhere else. And you ask them why? No, I was not getting the satisfaction that I want from the husband. But you say, but we could have solved this problem. No, when I asked you the question, you referred me to the book of Mark. I read the whole book of Mark the whole night. I didn't get my solution. I didn't get my solution to my problem. So how can I get help from those things? Are you following me? Yes. These are very, very important aspects that we need to. And many times we ask people questions. I mean, we've got the pastors, 2 pastors here that are here today. The challenge we sit with many pastors is when you ask them a question, they've got answers to everything. Ask them about the bedroom, they know they've got answers. Ask them about that. I mean, imagine if it is a white pastor and a black sister comes complaining about these issues. The white pastor must stop and think and say, do I understand this problem? Because the answer he might give there might mislead. So one must be very, very careful when it comes to these issues and address them appropriately. Do we have any questions now on this matter? Or do you want to? Yes.
I think I want to rehearse on the issue of communication as Pastor Chi is talking here. He reminds me of something. When you are spouses, you grow up together and you become open. You open up to each other about each and everything. You don't have secrets. But there's one thing about communication. As a man, you must be able to understand what a woman has not said by what she said, and what she said by what she has not said. Then you will be able to deal with these issues of demand and supply. Normally, sometimes before I leave the office, my wife would call and say, hey, today I had a very hectic day. I just wish I can go home, bath, and then sleep. Automatically, to me, it says for that night you won't have it. Yes, she hasn't said anything about that, but you pick it up from the statement. So those are the things that once you become closer to each other, you must be able to sense, not to hear what he says. We went to Johannesburg at some point with my wife. The gentleman calls me in the morning and he says, my wife yesterday, she came in, she parked the car, she took her clothes, put them in the car. She drove off and I'm calling her, she's not answering. And I say, my wife, you must call her. And then she said, yeah, what happened is yesterday, there is a lady who called me and said, I have a 6-month baby with your husband. I mean, it's a sister also. Said, your husband has got a baby with my sister. The problem is not taking care of the baby. So the lady, the wife, just dropped everything at work and then she drove home. When she arrived there, she was fed up. She didn't want to talk. She took the clothes and the child and she left. So when we went there, there was a discussion, a conversation, and there was a stage where the wife said, you know, with this happening on the side, in this house, I'm just cooking and cleaning the house. The husband was so loud and he said, yeah, what are you saying? If you say we are washing, whose responsibility is it to clean? Do you want me to come and cook with you? I'm saying, no, wait. I'm just picking up something from this conversation. This is a very pregnant statement, but you need to be careful when you deal with it. This woman says she doesn't get her needs from the bedroom. Am I correct on that one? She says, yes, for some months now, this man, when he walks in, and now I'm hearing this. So what I'm saying about that is, you must understand your partner. You must know your partner. And you must be able to sense before she says something that something is not right. And then you'll be home and dry on those issues. The second one is, I highlighted it earlier on. It must be understood that to Abraham in the Bible, God says, you are a father of many nations. Other scriptures are saying, from you comes many generations. It means a man is always ever ready. That is why God, when he created him, he doesn't menstruate. 24 hours. That is what women must understand. That men need sex. It's like a car, which if it doesn't have a fuel, it can't function. That's all what people must understand. And for women, I said it earlier on that they like it, but it may happen that someday she's not feeling like having it. You said something like someone who was still mourning, and the man is mechanical, straight to the point. If that thing jacks up, it must function. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Advocate. You said quite a mouthful. I've got two questions. And I agree with you on the first issue that I'm going to raise. And I think the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. But my question is, where do you draw the line? You spoke about the issue of you being able to support those that need to be supported. And you gave an indication of the fact that you might have an adult living in your house and they need to go to school, to matric, university and stuff like that. But you realize that sometimes those that you try and raise within your household, they then take you to be the person who was supposed to be responsible for their own lives, even when they have their own families, such that they make irresponsible decisions, believing that you always be there for you to be able to do whatever is required, even when they've got families. It's sometimes easier for men to be able to draw the line, to say, you know what, this far and no further. But when you've got a family and it's coming from your spouse side and stuff like that, so I'd like to probably understand how you would deal with it, or where to draw the line, even from my side, when I've got people like that who I have raised. but they keep on believing that I must keep on taking care of them until, I don't know. And then the second thing is that one thing I've realized about family scenarios is that it's easier for us as men to come and propose to our wives what we want in the bedroom for sex. But it's not easy for ladies to propose things in the bedroom in terms of what they want. And I can understand that. Because as a man, if my wife comes and say, look, I'm proposing this thing here, I'll begin to ask her and say, but where did you get this thing from? So from a wisdom advocate, I'd like to understand exactly how these things can be tackled. Because as I've said already, it's easier for me to say, you know what, darling, today we're going to try this. But for her, how do we make our women open up and tell us exactly what they want in the bedroom without any fear of any retribution or sense of guilt or the men asking them where they got those ideas from? And then the last question, advocate, is this is a general question. And I don't think it's false. I've seen on social media that there are two books. One is how to understand a woman, and the other one is how to understand a man. And the male version is really quite thin, but but the female one it's really quite big.
It is part
What
one.
what advice can you probably give us as men so that we can probably be able to understand the women better? Thank you.
Tough ones. I think what makes what deals with a man thin. I said it earlier on that man is mechanical, but women for anything is a process, and it starts with even the issue of shopping. She starts by talking about it. And then going there, when she goes from one shop to the other, and then she's got these papers that come out of the newspapers that says this one is cheaper at Pick and Pay, the other ones. One day I was driving with my wife from Rustenburg. I picked up a ticket because we started at Main Lane. We wanted something, we couldn't find it. We drove to Rustenburg. We came from Rustenburg. They said she then changed because the size that we wanted there, it was no more there. Then we had to go back to Main Lane before they closed. So why? Because they are detailed. And we have to put up with that. If she goes to buy clothes, she will want to go with you so that you sit there, you look at her and affirm that, yeah, this one is good. And at that time, you'll be tired. Yeah, she says, yeah, sit here. I want to go inside. I will wear when I come out. At that assurance, she needs it. So, in simplicity, by God's creation, for them, anything is a process. For a man, it's straightforward. When you know that you want to buy the techies, Nike, you see them this week, the following week you go straight to the shop, you take them, you go home. We must understand that they are detailed. And then women must understand that men are simple and straightforward. Yeah. I don't know whether I have answered that one properly. It's a general answer to that one. The second one is, why is it not allowed or easier for a woman to suggest? There are things that are created as the laws of how things are done within the community. And only to find that there is no one who said things must be done in that way. We should remember that in as much as we sit as gentlemen and talk about these things, they also sit and talk about these things and say, hey, did this happen? And then she hears something somewhere. You are blessed that she wants to come back and exercise it in your own house. Because the other one will say, I'm going to go somewhere so that I test drive there. And then, so you must be, we are living in another century now. We need to open up about these things. When you are married, I said you must connect to an extent that you are free to talk about any and everything. When a woman expresses her dissatisfaction, it's not an attack. You have to look at how you can improve on that basis And she must be able to pick up a phone and say, what time are you knocking off today? You say, I'm knocking she says, I want you here. And you can't have in this thing of communication, when I'm saying women communicate in a different way. Sometimes they communicate in codes. She can't say, I miss you whilst you are sitting with her inside the house. Then you should think. But if you are using that as a plain language analysis, you'll say, this one is talking shit, he's talking rubbish. How is he missing me? I wake up in this house every day. Yeah, so you must be free, open, and flexible. Because remember, if you treat this from partner's perspective, in a business, there is no one who is bigger than the other in partners. So if you have that mentality, you will be able to allow her to contribute as well in as much as you contribute, because you want it to work for both of you. You are happy, you must be happy, and we are lucky, blessed that she comes back and tell you about that, rather than saying that I will compliment it somewhere else. Then there is this issue of being a breadwinner. I always say typical of our families as Africans is once a breadwinner, always a breadwinner. I had a friend 2 weeks back when I was home. He tells me that he has bought material and everything. He's got a stand and he wants to build. His mother is saying that when you leave, who is going to take care of me? And then there's a conflation of ideas. When Jesus was in the cross, few minutes, one of the 7 words, he said, Mother, behold the son. So it means when the father is not there in the household, the son must take over in taking care of the mother. And then the siblings as well, they come, and then they can see that you provide. And then even minor things that can be afforded by anyone, they just make a call and say, hey, please, can you call our brother? They say there's something that we need to spend for at home. There is a stage where you have to put your foot down, because otherwise you will fight with your wife in the house. Because most of the things, when you do them, when we say you must open up about spending, Mr. Maja talked about it. We are talking about being realistic to what you have, because you'll end up spending more than what you have, because you want to impress the other people. So you need to sit down and say, how much do we have? If her mother says she needs money and I have money, I can't wait until the mother must wait until she's paid. If I have money, I should assist, but assist within my reasonable means, because I do not want to overcommit. So in simplicity, whether it's your brother or it's who, you should be able to calculate if they are abusing you, because they think you've got a soft heart, you can spend for anyone, because you did it when I was still at the university. And you spend for them so that they become financially independent. They still want to come back. It is unfair for them to do so. So you must be able to put your foot down and say, look, I have financed you, you are financially independent, do it. And women will see it first and talk about it, and then you say, they don't like my women. But I want to tell you one thing. Women have got good eyes. Even the friends, they will tell you in the early that this one is not a good friend. Yeah. And I'm telling you to turn out one day, he is not. Yeah, I think it's, that is to wrap up. You have to put your foot down when you feel that you are abused. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other person linked to this?
Okay, I just want to ask, how do we deal with a low female libido?
Low female libido.
I think that is too medical. I have read things. It happens, for an example, when a woman is being abused. When they abuse you, you turn out to feel as if you are nothing. And once you feel as such, everything mentally that goes with that, it will also affect Because firstly, before you go out, remember I said this is more about the looks. Before you should appeal to the other person, you have to feel good yourself. That when I walk out there, they can feel that now I have arrived, even for your husband. And once that thing is gone, it is likely to go to an extent of affecting your sexuality, your sexual behavior, your libido, and so forth. That's the first part of it. And it also normally happens when people have had babies, because association with that process, remember, you'll have the breast milk and all sorts of things that will make you feel unattractive. And then it also affects your psychological part, and then it goes down to your sexual performance as well. So to be honest with that one, I think it's too medical and can be addressed by the medical profession. My wife is a nurse. Maybe I think she can deal with that, even though she's not a medical doctor. I'll give it to her.
Thank you very much. Firstly, it can be a medical condition or psychological condition, but most of the time it's psychological. Why? Because on his presentation, he said sex doesn't start in the bedroom. For us women, sex doesn't start on the bed. The way you are being treated, maybe it might not be the way you are being treated now. It might be something that's coming from far and you have never dealt with, and it went and set on your super ego. Now you are not even aware that you were affected by something. So now what happens is, when you go and consult, they will refer you to a psychologist. Yeah? Psychologist will start digging from the upbringing. Where do you come from? How did you grow up? And all. And after that, once you talk those things out, the libido might improve. Before we go to treatments, it should be dealt with psychologically. Again, women, what boosts the women libido is to know that you are being appreciated, is to know that you are beautiful. You must know that you are beautiful, you must know that you are attractive. Yeah. Then, if you know that and believe in that, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I'm beautiful, I'm attractive, I'm all that, it can come back. So, it's firstly psychological before medical. I don't know if you answered. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the example that she gave of looking yourself in the mirror and you say, I'm beautiful. And I just remembered of one hotel that had problems with their elevators. All the time there were problems and all the reviews were bad. And they decided they tried to fix the elevators, they couldn't get them working. But then they looked for somebody who does some critical thinking. And he said, no, who are complaining about the elevators the most? He says, the women. So it's okay, that's fine. I'm going to suggest something. At every floor, put some big mirrors, large mirrors. So when they put those mirrors, they never had any complaint. They never fixed the elevators. They just put in the mirrors. So the ladies who go there punch in the elevator and they go to the mirror, start looking at themselves. By the time they're done with the mirror, the elevator is there. They never complained from that day. So I like it when he says, look yourself in the mirror and say, you are beautiful. You are appreciated. You are lovely. And that will work. Do we have any other questions around that? So the husband is saying, slaughter me.
My question is around submission, really. I don't know what that means, to be honest, because I was actually reflecting on Mr. Maja's speech that he gave regarding quitting jobs and selling houses and all that, and I'm thinking, okay, as a sister, I'm sitting there and husband is making these decisions. Do I need to challenge him? Also, the issue about sex in the bedroom, really. When I say no to him, am I not also saying I'm not submitting to what we got as an instruction that we should submit to our husbands?
When I started, I talked about communication. If you communicate more, if you say, the Bible says, you must not be stingy of you to each other. Only if you are praying and you are fasting. So I'm saying that there should be a reason why it's not happening. Because with us as men, 24 hours is a way to go. So, so there should be a sound reason, and from the biblical perspective is praying and fasting. Nothing else. But I can add if somebody is sick.
Not the funeral.
So
Not the funeral. Not the funeral.
I can add if somebody is sick. But the most important part is communication, so that you should know your person when it's on form and wise. If you go to Egypt during what is this thing when they Ramadan, the coach cannot expect his players to perform the way they do if it's not Ramadan. So this communication therefore will assist you to gauge whether I will get it. Like I said in my situation, that when they say this, I know nobody said that to me, and I've never said it to her. But you learn to think, because as a man you must have a vision. As a leader you must have a vision. A leader who is visionary takes decisions for his people, constituency, even before they say something. The service delivery that you see here from the government, some of them we never asked it. They just say we will build a stadium next year and we will put the road that moves from Johannesburg to Pretoria. Because they know, they can sense that our constituency need this and this and this. So in that regard, it means when your communication is good, you will be able to sense that no, today things are not okay. Then it will not happen. There must be a reason for that. The second one, submission. Submission, I said it, that it doesn't mean that you have to agree to everything that he says. But it says, where you say you do it with respect. Don't lose that. That is why I said no matter how angry you are, one of them is failure to submit is to raise your voice on your husband. Because you treat him like a child if you do so. Therefore, he will not even want to apply his mind on merits of what you are saying, because you are disregarding him. That is the first part of submission. The second one, as I say, is when you disagree, how do you disagree? When you disagree, don't lose your position as a woman that submits in that situation. So the third one is there are decisions that are taken. When he takes decision, I don't think he comes and he opens the door and say, look, today we are buying a car. Or he says, come outside. There is a car that I bought. Here there is a fridge. And this and this. So then it means you are not a couple if that happens. You discuss these things. She gives her views. The husband gives the views as well. Eventually you come up to a conclusion that you think it will work for all of you. But there is a situation, like Mr. Maja said, that there is a stage where you should understand as a woman how far you can go in terms of influencing the decisions that are taken. It's like a manager in a subordinate situation. He will sit there and say, look, what are you saying? You contribute. This one contributes. And after all, one day our CEO did competition commission. We discussed another case for about an hour. And then he said, by the way, I'm not forced to take a decision based on the recommendations that we are making. I'm still going to think about this. Go home. So that is a situation, of course. It will happen that there is, and trusting your husband, that he will never. I drive sometimes in a very high speed when I'm driving our Baki that is at home. She will never complain. But if we can get into another car and it's driven at a high speed, she starts complaining that hey, this person is driving recklessly. Why? It's because no matter how fast I can drive, she knows that I will never do anything to harm her, because any decision that I take is proper and is always taken for the better and betterment of the family. So when you trust your husband in a decision that he takes, you put your weight behind him. And it is not always the case that what you support him in doing or her in doing is what you agree with. But it is, if it is his or her dream, you must try to find a way. My mom said, you must agree more and disagree less. Difference of opinion creates the division.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to the organizers of this function. It is very helpful to us. We have been helped. We may try and separate ourselves from the issues, but there are real issues that are being raised here. So I'm going to start by, you said we shouldn't raise our voice to our husbands. By that, does it mean men are also allowed to raise their voices to us? And then we must just keep quiet. That's one. I understand very well the issues of submission. So I'm not separating myself from my person. I'm speaking personally. Is it allowed for a man to be raising their voice and then I just submit? I don't have a problem with that. I submit. And then the other issue is I also need other ladies to help me here. I can't separate myself from my emotions. If I'm emotionally bruised and you have got your mechanic thing that you say it's mechanical, mine doesn't function at all. My system doesn't function at all. I don't know if you can assist me here. When I'm emotionally bruised and some mechanic is, how do I handle that? How do I handle that? Because I can't, honestly, I can't separate myself from my emotions. I'm attached with my emotions. I don't work separate from my emotions. Thank you.
So maybe before the advocate responds to this, when he was presenting and he was talking about the shouting part, he touched something, but he just did it briefly. Because he said, but you are in the same room, why do you have to raise your voice? And I've often said to people, if I'm talking to him and I'm like, do you like fishing? And he says yes. And I go, do you like fishing? It doesn't make sense. And I've often said, the moment you start, because you only raise your voice to someone who is far away from you, so that they can hear you, because it's about hearing. You don't emphasize by a loud voice. You are shouting because the person is very far. But if you are standing next to each other and you raise your voice, it means you are far apart emotionally. Yes. You have drifted apart and you never knew it, you never noticed. But your voice and emotions are already showing that you have drifted. So the moment, it must be an alarm bell for you. The moment you start seeing yourself raising your voice, then you know that there is another problem that you need to resolve before you even start dealing with this problem. Solve that problem and say, but why am I shouting? Because we must be logical all the time and common sense must always prevail. Because sometimes when you start shouting, the other one will start shouting as well. So it will be two people shouting at each other. That's why you hear the kids say, my parents were fighting yesterday. Why were they? How did they hear it? Because they were shouting. But you can talk, you can discuss an intense topic with normal voices. Normal voices. And you put facts. Facts speak for themselves. I always say, facts don't lie. You lay them on the table. Say, for instance, it's a discussion on a business deal like what Tate Manja was talking about. And then he says, you know, my decision is based on this thinking, that if I put this amount and we will be able to do this and do this, this will be the outcome. So on paper, this is how it is. And then she can't say, I don't see it that way. No, she can't do that. Or she should not do that. But she can do it, right? But she should not do that. But she can say, I see your understanding. But maybe there's some missing information that I'm trying to process here and I don't seem to be getting it. Go over this again and let me try to understand, and maybe I'll ask questions as we go along. When you talk about this amount, what does that mean? How does it impact this value? And what if the conditions change? How will this impact your business plan? She is asking a very difficult question, but in a dignified manner. And that's the respect, and that's part of that submission that we're talking about. Because, I mean, if you remember very well, there is a statement that I think Mr. Majam and Tata Majam mentioned when we were down there. And I want to emphasize it. I was talking to one man who had problems, I think last week, in his marriage, and he was just relating some issues to me. And then there's a statement that I mentioned, and I asked him a very simple question, and I said, when you made that decision, were you making that decision as a man or as a husband? It's a loaded question, right? Very loaded question. Were you making it as a man or were you making it as a husband? Because if you can't differentiate the two, then you get yourself into trouble. You have to be very, very clear, because you can consult and do all the consultation work. And I've often said it, advocate, you can do all the consultation work, but like what your boss said, he says, I can't make the decision now. I'll make the decision, because ultimately there's a decision that's supposed to be made. And we always say, when a decision is made, it has been made. One cannot then say, that decision, I'm not part of it. Then it means you're not one team. When a decision has been made, you have put your facts on the ground, and this one has put their facts on the ground, and a decision is made, then support the decision. Isn't that so? Yes. We are not members, we don't have members. So I was talking to one of my workmates in Kenya. So they were asking something personal. So I suggested to them, but it involved some money. And then she says, I think it's a bright idea, Mr. Chi, but I think I'll need to consult the member of opposition. No, not member, the opposition team. She said, I must consult the opposition team. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, my husband. So, you know, I chuckled because she said it as a joke, but I chuckled because for me, she actually refers to her husband as the opposition member. And she is the ruling party. The other one is the opposition. So you cannot reach that point where you say he is in the opposition, I am the ruling. You must always agree. When one loses, then you say, let's support this idea that has been voted for. Then you make it work. Advocate.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult question. It's about personal decisions and personal choices. If I can be direct, how often have you exploded and it fixed the problems? I don't think so. It worked. You would have shouted, but nothing changes. So you have to think now whether the strategy that we are using your energy, it works or not. It means it doesn't work for you. It goes back to what I said, that the Proverbs 31 wife, uvula umlomo ngokuhlakanipha, she opens her mouth with wisdom. She thinks about what will happen after what she will say. Does it solve the problem? If it doesn't solve the problem, then it's useless. God was smart when he said that. That is number one. Number two, is it allowed for a man to shout on top of his voice when he talks to the wife? No. Because as a man, you are a leader and you must be exemplary. What you will not approve of or appreciate if somebody does, you mustn't do it to someone else.
So I think you have answered. My question was on the second part. where the woman is submitting or is not shouting. It doesn't shout at all. But is it allowed for a man? But you have already answered it. So I'm happy with that part. Thank you.
No shouting, husband, no shouting.
No, you can raise it. My wife wanted to take a bite on this issue. I don't know. The chairman, otherwise I'll end up chairing the meeting. And nepotism, yeah.
Give it to her. Then stop. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, my sister, you're also raising an issue of emotions.
Just put it closer to you. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. She's raising an issue of emotions, being too emotional, that she can't separate herself from her emotions. I would like to marry all the questions and make it one so that you can answer, because it should start somewhere. Yeah? We're talking to married people here, no? Right? The Bible says, husband, love your wives as Christ did with the church. One of the things that Christ did, he protected the church. Ne? How do you protect your woman? Protect his emotions. It starts there. If she's well protected, believe you me, she'll submit to anything. She will submit to anything. If she is well protected, that is where it starts. Remember, our husbands are the head of the family, of our families. My husband said you should take leadership. And if it doesn't go well there, it won't go well down. Start by protecting the emotions. She's asking, does the husband have a right to shout at her? Remember, when you shout at your woman, you are saying, this is how we communicate. Shout at me. I think, isn't it that you are taking leadership now? Yeah. So, if you shout at me, you are saying, I should shout back. That's the way of communicating. Yeah. It is allowed. Once you start demonstrating it, then you are saying it's allowed. Yeah. Right. So, husbands, don't shout at your woman, then she won't shout at you. I said, if you do it correct, she will submit to anything you say. She will never be emotional. When she says, I can't separate, she can't separate herself from her emotions because the emotions are not taken care of. Take care of those emotions. Women, we are emotional beings. We are very vocal. Give me a space to express myself. And I will express myself the way you express yourself to me. Isn't it that the Bible says when we get married we are one? Yeah. And then as a husband, the head of the house, you set rules of how things are to be done in your house. I came from my family having my own surname. You took me in and said, I am going to be Ndlovu. Do things the way the Ndlovus do. Set an example. Take care of the emotions. Then everything will be solved. Yeah. Thank you.
She's talking for women.
I'm still not answered because I asked a question. When I'm emotionally bruised and the main machine is
mechanical.
All right, that part was not answered.
So she is emotionally bruised.
And
She's
this
not
one
able
says
something
here now.
and then the man is saying, ready, you must start now.
Okay.
Fast and free.
Okay, on that part, I'm saying she needs to take care of that part. Allow the woman to talk the things out. Rightfully, you are not supposed to go around with things that happened yesterday. be able to voice them out. Let them be ironed out before you start being mechanical. Because honestly, she's right. You can't be emotional. You can't serve your man when you are emotionally bruised. So it means the first thing that needs to be attended is your emotions. And be prepared to talk things out. Because if I, as a woman, I say I'm emotionally bruised, then I'm closing all the doors, I'm putting padlocks everywhere. We will sit with a problem. Because then now, it will be one problem after another. So let's learn to talk issues out and move on.
Yes.
I don't know if you are answering.
Can I also add something? I think the men around here must take this question seriously. And the reason why I'm saying take it seriously is in the sense that, say for instance, she's emotionally bruised, like she has said, and obviously speaking on behalf of some of the women here, you are emotionally bruised, and the mechanics is waiting, but she doesn't voice it, that actually I'm emotionally bruised. And then you get to work and you start preaching. And you are preaching and you are preaching. I mean, when you are preaching to a dead church, you can feel it. That this church is dead. There is no amen. There is no preach it. There is no, come on now. There is nothing. There's nothing. That's why you hear some of the pastors stop preaching and they say, is there something wrong? But you are thinking, yeah, I'm really, yeah. And then there's no response. I think a logical pastor would stop and say, I think there is underlying issues here we might need to talk about. Because sometimes the women need to be prompted to empty out. Sometimes they won't empty out by themselves because of what happened perhaps in the past when they tried to do it and it never worked. Let's hear the question here.
Okay, I don't have a question, but I think I will take side with men this time. Most of the time, we women, especially the Christian women, we are very selfish. And we take advantage of our husbands. We tend to switch them, like most of the time, like, okay, Nzomlaya, I won't give it to him. Then you know that's the punishment that you do. But if you know the appetite of your husband, I mean, why would you do that? You know very well that your husband cannot go over a week without having sex. And then when you decide to switch him for 2 weeks.
Yes.
For 2 weeks.
Sanctions,
What do you expect from a man? Because now what you're doing, you're taking advantage. He's a Christian, he won't go outside. One of these days, you creating problems for yourselves, because now you're not giving your husband what you're supposed to give, and then there's a lady at work. That lady is just waiting for one chance. And when it's been 2 months now, you're not giving your husband, and the lady got the chance. It happens that they do whatever they do, and the lady says, yeah, I've got it. And then now the man goes away forever. And the problem that you should have avoided by just allowing your husband to chow. Because now it's not like you're gonna lose anything. Yes, we have emotions. I think if you feel like your emotions are high, midweek service. Yeah, you can just do midweek service and then that's it. We leave the Sunday service because it takes long.
That's a standing ovation from the brothers. That's quite interesting. But I think you can see that this is a very emotive issue, and I've often said that when you talk to a man, you can actually see that this man is getting it or this man is not getting it. And when you talk to men, even at work, it's very easy to tell the men who are happily married and the ones who are not. And when I'm talking about happily married, I'm talking about those who are getting serviced, who are getting that service. You can tell that there is an underlying problem here. Pastor Chareka and then Hadassah. Hadassah, do you have the question? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is quite an interesting discussion. First, I want to appreciate Advocate. I think you gave us some well-rounded advice on a lot of matters. So what I want to just say, because we don't get to talk about these things, it's I still maintain it's not proper to have this kind of a discussion behind the pulpit, but at a platform like this, we tend to open up and say things that we would not ordinarily say. So what I want to say from experience is also that issue, especially the union between men and women, creates problems in a marriage, and sometimes the issues are so sensitive that you feel it's like a state secret. You are afraid if you let it out, there can be someone who can take advantage of that. So I just want to advise from experiences, but mainly focusing on men, because that's what I know. Many times when you find that your wife is not cooperative or is not giving you the green light to say, let's go in this direction, you may also need just to take some few steps back. I think you've already highlighted the first one. You don't touch a woman's body before you touch a woman's heart. A happy woman will give you also a happy married life. I'm speaking from a dignified position. A happy woman will give you a happy married life, if I should say it like that. And sometimes, I know that there was a question that was raised. Sometimes the reason why a woman might refuse is because of past experiences. Sometimes men can be so selfish, they think of themselves, they're just thinking of satisfying themselves, and they don't consider the needs of the woman. And a woman, after some time, feels that this man is actually abusing me. He's just coming to help himself, but he's not looking at my side. So the next service, if you want to call it that way, you meet opposition. Because the past services were not a blessing. Then there's opposition. That's number one. Secondly, there are certain things that we men, we should look at. We should, I know that men are very quick, they want to do their things quickly, but when you start to deal with a woman, you have to invest time, effort. I know we are Africans here. Buy some flowers. Buy some flowers. Don't send just flowers on WhatsApp. Buy some flowers. And bring them. Be romantic. Change. Make the experience. Don't make it the same. I've been married for 12 years. I mustn't behave the same way that I've been behaving 12 years. If I was gonna eat pap in commerce every day, it was not going to be a blessing. So bring some variety, bring some drama into it. Another thing, women, as our wives start cooking for us, we start eating and eating and eating. Our diet also has an impact in what happens behind closed doors. So when you know that you are going to have an encounter or you are going to have a service, be mindful of the things that you eat. Certain things can just close off the appetite. Yeah, and give yourself time to stretch, like what we do. Let the blood circulate. Be fit, because certain things need endurance. It needs activeness. Yeah. I'm not an athletic person. I don't have an athletic body, but I make time. Like I was so happy to do the 5 kilometers, whatever, because that is helpful. So it's your emotional state between you and your wife. It's the food that you eat. I can drop some things because this is the right platform. Sometimes when you're about to go to bed, buy some green pepper and cut it and put some, some salt in it. You tell me, you send me a message later.
You take me later. You take me later.
So there's certain food which, like if you're going into a meeting and you eat a mountain of pap, you're not going to be productive in the meeting. So you don't have energy. Yeah, that's why they say if you like coffee, you must know, take your coffee at a certain time. It will make you awake for longer. So these are a few things that we need to know, because it creates so much pressure and pain on your wife. Until next time when you want to introduce the subject, there's so many excuses. No, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm this. It's because the experience is not taking them where it's supposed to. Don't just think of yourself, think of the other person. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to start a farm. I want to start farming green pepper.
I'll put it in the greenhouse.
I want to go back to my sister there who was talking about emotions. I think sometimes when we try to speak as women, men don't hear or listen to us. There's they tend to cover up, or you end up being the victim yourself. So they start blaming you, and you can't even say more. Like you can't tell them more because you want to communicate to them how you feel, what's happening, but it's like they feel like they're in a court or something, and in the end, nothing really happens. And the other thing I want to talk about is when also sometimes I know my friends were thinking it's something else, but sometimes when men are tired, they also don't want sex. They can be so tired to the point that they just can't, but at some point we also want it, but they're tired. So it's something also. At least now I know about drinking. But the emotion one, I think that one, especially for our African men, it's very difficult. So maybe you can help us on that one.
All right, I think that's a very good angle, and maybe I want just to tie in this contribution, kind of like question, to one of the questions that I think I received it this morning through the survey as well, and the question was, how do we avoid arguments in marriage? When I looked at that question, I just said, you can only avoid arguments in marriage by not marrying. That's how simplistic I looked at it. But I think I just want to tie into what Adasa said as well, because it's very, very important. So the issue that she flagged here about men not listening, I think that is a very important aspect. And we need to find ways of communicating, because if we don't know how to communicate as couples, and I'm sure as you mature together, you tend to know how the two of you communicate. And it's very, very important. And it's very, very important sometimes to have open discussions and clear-cut discussions to say, you know what, I feel like when I'm talking to you, you're not listening to me, or vice versa. And it's important for one to be able to be very clear on that aspect and be truthful about it. Because I don't think you can stay in that marriage without one day expressing the things that make you tick. I think normalize asking each other, is there something that I'm doing that you don't like? Is there something that I need to do more for you to be able to appreciate me better and love me better? Normalize doing that, because if you don't do that, that becomes a problem. But I want to dwell again and build on that and answer that question about arguments, because you can never avoid arguments, because as long as you've got two individuals coming from two different backgrounds, marrying and get to marry each other and start living together, you are bound to have arguments. If you are always thinking the same things and agreeing all the time, one of you is faking it. One of you is not being truthful. Maybe they come from a home where the mother was always battered. She never said the word. It was yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, God. Yeah. And now you marry that woman. She is from that background, so she never raises a word. She agrees to everything that you say. But the danger of that is one day you realize that she has been emotionally been abused by you and you didn't know it. So normalize to have these open discussions. But when you look at arguments, there are two things that happens in an argument. There is the confronter and the avoider. Those two. One of you is either. The confronter wants to sort out the issues there and then, and they want to talk about it now. And the avoider wants to avoid discussing this issue, hoping and trusting it will solve itself. Issues don't solve themselves, by the way. Sometimes you might ignore it, and then you think it has solved itself, then you move on. And then another issue comes up, and you think it will solve itself, then you move to another. But one day, that spring that is holding up everything will break. That's why one gentleman said, you know what? When I argue with my wife, she becomes historical. The guy says, no, don't you mean she becomes hysterical? No, he said, no, she becomes historical. She starts going back to 1994. Oh, sorry, not 1994. But he said, she goes back to many years ago and she started picking up things. And you wonder, so all these things were bottled up. Let me give you advice, the ladies who are here, and maybe my wife in the medical field and Miss Ndlovu here might confirm that, but if it's wrong, they will also correct me. In a woman, before you pause from menopause, right? Before you reach that point of menopause, that ability for you to suppress pressure and issues is effective. But when you reach menopause, that ability is lost. So no wonder you hear some people reach that stage and you hear that they divorced. All along they could bottle it up and keep it. They would be abused, the people say a lot, the husband will say, and they'll just bottle it up. But one day when that energy, that spring is not there, it snaps. And then everything. And then you as the husband, you're wondering, are we still talking about this issue or there's other issues? Then you realize, no, you're no longer talking about this issue here. You're talking about an issue that happened 10 years ago. And then you start wondering what really happened. You see, because they were bottling it up. That's why they go historical. So when you look at that confronter and avoider, you have to be very, very careful, because some of the confronters, when they want to solve issues, they go historical. They start talking about the thing that happened in the past. That's why you said this to me that day. That's why you said, but we solved that issue. No, I still remember it. That's why you said this to me this day. That's why you said to me, you want to kill me, right? You want to kill me? You don't have a heart. Haibo. I no longer have a heart now. Oh, so when you said I took your heart, you were serious. Well, you're saying I no longer have a heart. So I'm just saying that in a joking manner. But those statements start coming in now. And they become so abusive in their language in a bid to try and confront an issue. So you just need to strike a balance between that confronter and the avoider. Because if you don't strike that balance between those two, you will then be in trouble all the time. So it's very, very helpful to just communicate like you rightly said, to have that open communication. But we as men as well, especially the African men, I think we need to learn to communicate. To really learn to communicate, because that is the main problem that we have. I'm also still learning. Every day I'm learning. I'm open to learning. I think that's the idea here. You must be open to learning. Because if you're not open to learning, you shut down, you think you are the best. You think you're the best, you don't do anything wrong. No. So if anything happens in the house, it's the wife's problem, not you. You think you are the king. Everything that you say goes. But that's not the idea. That's not the kind of marriages we are cultivating here. We want marriages where things can be discussed openly and you are equal partners in that marriage.
Amen.
So if you are partners in the marriage, then each one knows their role. Each one knows their role. I mean, you can't go into, I mean, right now we are in South Africa. We know the president is President Cyril Ramaphosa. There's no other president, right? He is the ultimate in terms from the president's perspective. He is the president. So we cannot have two presidents. Each one knows their role. There are people, there's also Deputy President Mabuza, there is the cabinet, everyone knows their role. But they know that in that presidium, they are equal partners. I don't think Cyril Ramaphosa, as the president, one day just comes and says things, and says, this is the way we are going. No. If we are in a constitutional democracy, hey, I got that right. I always get it wrong. In a constitutional democracy, the president does not just veto. That's why there is a constitution to define what he's supposed to do. We have our constitution, the word of God. It tells us the position. It does not mean that when he says a woman submit, does not mean that submission means to be a doormat. That's not submission. That's abuse. So we must know what the Constitution says and interpret it correctly. Because many times it's the interpretation. And lawyers will tell you, interpretation of the law is very important. Because someone can misinterpret the law. That's why it's then when there's been arguments from this magistrate court to this court, it goes to Bloemfontein. Is it Bloemfontein? The Constitutional Court. The last one is here. Yeah, in Johannesburg, Constitutional Court. And they make a decision. That's why you are here sometimes they say that law should be stricken out of our laws because it's not constitutional. I mean, they will compare all those things and look at it clearly. So we must be able to, because it's the interpretation, that's where people make mistakes. That's why some husbands, they take that word submission seriously. But I think there is a statement that the advocate mentioned that when a man is not respected, I don't want to repeat it because I will get it all wrong. But it's all about what you do from a love perspective and what the woman does from a respective. If you don't love your woman, she will appear disrespectful. And if you don't respect your husband, you will appear unloving. So it works together like that. All right.
Can I?
Yeah, please, Ed, while I stand here, I'm also looking at the time.
These things are always tied together. When I said whatever you give to a woman comes back, and when it comes back, it comes in multiple. It may be positive or negative. At some point, my colleague at work brings the lady, very beautiful lady, she comes with a friend. Then they sit there, the other one says, I'm the one who's got a problem. Then start, what is the problem? He says, my husband is giving me a lot of money. And he buys me expensive things as I'm driving Ford ST that he bought for me. Buys me expensive clothes. He wants sex every day. If I can say I'm going to town, he will say, come, let's do it before you go. When I'm out, he calls me 20 or 15 times a day. Then I'm saying you have all nice life problems. Any lady will want what you are talking about. Tell me, have you ever heard do you fight at some point? She says, yes. Can you give me an example of the exchange of words that once took place when you were fighting? She said, I said to him, when I leave, I'm not going to tell you. I'll just disappear because you think we are smart. Then I'm saying, the other one, she says, when he's discussing things with his friends, he doesn't want me to comment. The third one, the last one, he chooses friends for me. Yeah. So, right.
Bad one.
Then I'm saying to her, I've managed to diagnose what is the problem. What you say when you are fighting is very important. For an example, calling your wife stupid. That thing sticks with her for the rest of her life. You will be intending to have her contributing positively in positive things that you are doing. She will be backward. Because before she talks, she remembers that this man views me as a stupid. He may have apologized, not because he doesn't view me as such, but because he felt what he said caused harm to me. So now it's like we are stealing. When we find you, you say, I have left what you thought I was stealing. So I didn't steal. You withdraw the intention, but you had already finished stealing. Right. So that's why I'm saying, very careful of what you say when you are fighting, because it lasts more than you were thinking. So I'm saying to this lady, this man is obsessed. Because when you go out, he doesn't know whether you are coming back, because you said you will not tell. You will just disappear. When he calls you 20 times, he's still trying to check whether you are still coming back, because you said, when I go, I'm not coming back. If you go, because you are still young, if you are going to another man, that other man must not do it more than I do it. And if you think we are going there today, I must do it before that man does it. 2, anything that man leverages power, and if those 2 aspects are dysfunctional, that man is finished emotionally. And you must understand that as women. Money and sex. If sex is dysfunctional, that man is finished. If there is no money, you must try to boost his ego on that basis. Otherwise, he will pack and go before you say anything. So what he then does is he's going to give you a lot of money, and then a lot of sex, a lot of clothes, so that no man will provide as such. So there is no man who will want to say every day. No, that is an obsession. So what you must do is go back, reassure that man, and I'm telling you today, you are with your friend here, you are saying, he says, yeah, I'm supporting you, this man is abusive. The following day, you will find under his sheet. What will you say? Because you will say this here to encourage yourself that any woman wants what you are benefiting from that man. So what you must do, go back, cook a nice dinner for the guy, stop shouting at him, tell him how much you love him, and tell him you are withdrawing what you said. You will never say it, and it will never happen again. They are still married even today. So what you say, be very careful of, because it lasts a long way.
Okay, I want to speak to men with regards to the emotions issue. I know a lot of men, our women can get moody. I'm one person, I've told my wife so many times, I don't know how to deal with moods. So if she swings into that mood,
like Captain Weather,
I'm one person who will just switch off, because I don't know how to deal with moods. So, but what I've learned, the house that you live in, doesn't matter how much you paid for it, doesn't matter how beautiful the home may be, it becomes boring if you are there 24/7, January to December. It becomes boring. It might be a mansion, beautiful, with everything that you need, steam bath, whatever you can call it, but it can become boring. So what I have noticed with my sweetheart here, when emotions are high, sometimes I've seen a lot of people, when we post something on status, they kind of comment, hey, where are you guys? They know we do holidaying a lot. So sometimes it's not even a holiday.
Emotions.
You just drive out. You take a drive, go out, leave the everyday things. Go out and see something. You know, the tree that you have at your house, you see it somewhere along the way. It's better than the one that you've got in the house.
Yeah, true.
And that's a way to deal with emotions. By the time you come back from wherever you've driven to, you are like you dating for the first day.
Yeah.
So every time you go out, you come back, the two of you, leave the kids, find somebody to give the kids. I think the advocate mentioned that in one Zoom session that we had sometime. You know, we love our kids, but don't let them take all your time. Because sometimes, you know, we've got our daughter is 2.5 years. So sometimes, many a times, I'm told, hey, I don't like the way you smile at her, you know. It's like she's taking her place. So they want to be observed. So our women they want to feel that you see them. You take notice that they are alive. But many a times when you do it around the house, I'm not saying don't do it at house. Do it at home. Do it anyway. But just take them out. Go 2 days, 1 day. You know, if you don't know, if you didn't know that holidays can be very cheap, you talk to my wife. They can be very cheap. I think we started going out for a holiday. We didn't even have a car. We took a bus to Durban, and we lived in a place. That place was, we always reflect, every time we visit Durban, we reflect on that place. But you see, that brings spark back every time. So the moment we come back, our issues that we're talking, everything is positive. But when you're looking at your beautiful walls every day, she can just bust. And you ask her, why are you angry? You've got a good house, you've got everything. So why are you getting angry? So the dealing with kids, that works on the emotions of a woman. So the day-to-day things that they do every day, I think you need to reconsider, men, how you treat her. Just take her off. Make sure you get her time off those things, just to reflect on yourself. You know, I've always that many a times that I look how happy she is. It's not when we are at home. It's when we're out there. I can see this is patience now. You know, but when we're home, yeah, it's something different. So just try to find a place where she likes. Take her to that place where she likes. If she likes holidays, take her to the holidays. She likes the coast out, take her to the coast. Let her see the water. She comes back refreshed. And the meals that you get, I don't mean the meals that like the bride that we're having.
The service.
The service is different. That's it. So
convention.
Let's try. Let's help our women. It's like, you know, like advocate says, men are straightforward. If I don't like something, I don't like it. If I like something, I like it. You see. But with women, it's different. So if you help her, that's one way of helping her. Taking her off the everyday life, just for her to refocus. If there is the memory card that needs to be always resetted, is the woman's memory card. It needs formatting all the time. And the way to format it, take her off the everyday things. Let her focus onto herself. You know, take her to a place where she's going to feel herself, to have self-confidence again. Thank you.
What a mouthful. What a mouthful. Oh, okay. I was just about to go and wrap up.
That's what I'm looking at the time now. She's asking for permission.
Slaughter him.
God bless you. It's my pleasure to be around brethren. We've had a good time. I just wanted to thank Dada Chilongo and Advocate. Thank you so much for the time. Well, I just want to say a few things. I don't have much, but I think it will help. It will help us both. We must learn to forgive one another. I think that's the absolute to all these problems that we are facing in our homes. We should just learn to forgive. If you forgive one another, then we won't have these things of emotions and piling up things from way back. I think that's all I can say. God bless you.
Thank you. Pastor Chareka, you missed the contribution from Pastor Zambuko there when he was talking about taking wives on holiday. He really mentioned that. So I think we've been here long enough, and I never thought we'll reach this time. I thought by 4 we'll be gone. That's what I actually thought. But I think this was a beautiful time that we had, and we can never exhaust this subject. And what it means then is I think we've got a lot of homework to do. Obviously, our approach in terms of how do we deal with such events in the future, I think we will just look at that as well. But I think the hiking part, for me, it was one of the solemn moments of this occasion. That hiking part was the best for me. And this was the cherry on the pie in terms of the discussions here. I want Brother Philip to prepare to just give a vote of thanks, and then I'll ask Marion to pray for us as we conclude the day. But while he is preparing in terms of the words to say, I just wanted to conclude by saying something that I have shared before about the list that saved my marriage. I think it's very important for us to talk about it here, so at least we can just wrap up with that. But there was this lady. She was tired of what was happening in her home. So one day when the husband left and went back home, when the husband left to go to work, she took the baby, picked up her clothes, got into the car, and she drove to her mother's house. He says, "Mom, I'm tired. I no longer want this home." You know the advantage of having your mom close by. He says, "I'm tired, Mom. I don't want." Says, "Okay, honey, you are my daughter, but I want you to do an exercise for me. Before, when Daddy comes, I will explain everything, but I just want you to do an exercise for me." It's okay, what do you want me to do? So she took a piece of paper and she drew a line. And then she said, "Sweetheart, I want you to write on the left every bad thing that my son-in-law does to you. Every bad thing. He sleeps in church. He doesn't give me this. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do this. He does this. He does this. He does this." And she finished the page. She turned the page and she was still writing. She had a lot to say about the husband. Then she said, "Mommy, so do you want me now to write on the right side the right things that he does?" And Mommy says, No. I know my son-in-law. I know the good things that he does. I don't want to know about those things. Now, I want you on the right side to write how you respond to all these issues, all these things that he does. How do you respond? And she started writing. When she started writing how she responds, it started dawning on her how terrible she was. It started dawning on her that this problem was not one-sided. It was two-sided. She couldn't finish. And then she asked, and the mama said, "Are you done, my daughter?" And she says, "Almost done." And then Mommy took the piece of paper, cut it into half, took the piece of paper where her daughter had written the bad things. She shredded that piece of paper. She didn't even read it. And then she says, "Mommy, why are you not reading the stuff?" I said, "I don't care what you wrote there." Now she was left with a piece of paper which showed how she reacted to all the things. Now, she doesn't know what was on the other side. All she has is the list of things of how she responds. When she started reading that list without the balancing list, she started seeing how bad and how she was contributing towards the situation in the home. And then she said, the mommy says was very clever. This is my daughter. Now you can leave your baby here. When the day comes, I'll tell him. But I think you need a moment. You can go home and process this list. Then you can come back and we can talk later. When she got to her home and she started reading that list, she felt so bad. She then made a decision and said, I am the one who is going to start changing. Because this, how I react, is not